Chapter 2. In the evening of the day of which I write about now, Roy Luther had an attack that left him queer in his thinking. Just at dusk, he rose from his chair on the porch and started out across the steps, but never reached them. He stopped suddenly and put one hand to the back of his neck, and a vague look wrinkled his brow. He took one step more, and then something unseen savagely tore into him. Across his face there swept rigid surprise, and then bursting agony, then his scream rang out, profaning the stillness. He pitched forward. Devola came running, and we got him into the house and up in his bed. Crumpled there, he held his temples desperately with both hands and was wretchedly sick. We cleaned the vomit and applied cold cloths and covered him with a cotton blanket. We didn't say the word doctor. Roy Luther doesn't hold with doctors. In his opinion, all that doctors knew how to do is cut. One had killed his mother, slicing into the ugly, shriveled growth on her neck, letting in the contaminated air. No doctor had ever stepped foot inside Roy Luther's house, and none ever would. Home medicine was a sight better than any doctor could bring. Devola made Roy Luther tamarick tea, which he couldn't keep down at first, but after the first long night had come and gone, some of the hot, resin-scented liquid stayed in his stomach. I made poultices of gum camphor and turpentine, and laid one on the back of his neck and the other on his stomach. I was struck by the fact that now his eyes were no longer alike. The pupil in the right one was much larger than that in the left. His right eye now seemed to be permanently fixed higher in his face. He couldn't speak though Dean and Romy sat beside his bed for hours at a time and in fearful whispers begged him to. To me it seemed like Roy Luther only had a handful of days left, and I prayed that the end would come in the night, because if it came in the day, I would have my hands too full with trying to explain to Romy and Dean what had happened. I'd have to lock them out of the room where Roy Luther lay, and I wouldn't dare let them see how bad I felt myself, because if I did any carrying on, they'd cut loose. 2. My mind kept shuttling backward and forward and over and around this worry, and all the others too, and there weren't any answers anywhere. This time, some 4 or 5 days of it was foreverness. Each morning I went alone for the witch hazel leaves. Devola stayed behind and cared for Roy Luther in the house. Dean cut herself a whole new doll family from the Sears catalog and stuffed the paper figures in fruit jars where they curled. Roy Luther lay in his bed on the cool, darkened room, scarcely breathing. Romy said it looked to him like now he was the man of the family, and put on his old boots and struck out across the fields, hoisting his hoe like a banner. That twisted my heart, because Romy is just barely 10 years old and has none of the rough makings of a farm boy. On about the 6th day, Devola reported to me that Roy Luther was some better, that he had been able to eat a little. What did he eat? I asked. She said, some beans and cornbread, and he drank a little tea with sugar in it. I held him up. I went in and looked at Roy Luther. He's shrinking, I thought. When we brought him in here, his bed was almost too small for him, but now he's lost in it. He's shrinking, and maybe this will just keep on until there's nothing of him left. I said, Roy Luther? He opened his eyes and focused the good one on me and tried to speak, but couldn't. Just a thick, foamy sound came out. Toward sundown, Romy came in from the fields with the suggestion that there might be something wrong with Kaiser peas. I asked him what made him think so, and he said, well, I haven't seen any smoke from his chimney for 2 days, and I haven't seen him either. The last time I did, he was coughing pretty bad. Said he was sick in the chest. I said, he's sick in the head, that's where he's sick. And everybody laughed, and Romy washed up, and Devola dished supper, and in a lighter mood, we sat down and ate. Romy said he knew there was Romy said he knew where there was a big spread of lamb's quarters, which is a pot herb, something like spinach. He said he had spotted it that morning. Said after supper, after supper, give me a second, I got to zone back in. So, after supper, he and I took a basket and some knives and lit out for the Trial Creek, which runs through the furthermost back section of Kaiser's land. In the evening gloam, old Joshua and Sugar Boy loomed big against the facing sky, and their foothills shadowed in blue gloom. The wind sweeping down the valley was fresh and brisk, and I said to Romy that I smelled rain coming and that maybe we'd get caught in it. He looked up and calculated and said, "No. By the time it gets here, we'll be close to Kaiser's house and can take shelter on his porch or in his garage. Come on, let's run." For all of his being so slight and fine-boned, Romy has amazing strength and can run faster than anything with 2 legs I ever saw. He beat me to the lamb's quarters bed by 10 lengths. The light was waning, and now the summer rain was closer, hovering thick over the mountain tops. On the opposite side of the creek, something among the black shadowed hardwoods crashed. Kneeling beside me, Romy gave pure attention to the tender green shoots. He said, "Wouldn't it be funny if that was a bear over there? What would you do if it was, Mary Call?" I said, "I'd sprout wings and fly out of here faster than any airplane ever built. It'd only take me about 2 minutes to get to Asheville." On his haunches, Romy moved around so that he was between me and the wind. He said, "Tomorrow I'm going to bring Roy Luther's gun down here and see if maybe I can't bag us some squirrels. Fried squirrel goes good with this stuff. What are you thinking about, Mary Call?" "Nothing." "About Roy Luther?" "Maybe. He's going to leave us, isn't he?" "He might." Romy's eyes and mouth, pale in the dusky light, were gravely steady. "If he does, what will we do?" "I don't know. I've been trying to think ahead, but I haven't figured it out yet." "Kaiser will make us move?" "Maybe." "If he does, where will we go?" "I don't know. Somewhere. We're going to live, Romy. Don't worry about things." Romy turned his head and looked at me. "He's too old for Devola, isn't he, Mary Call?" "Yes. Kaiser's most 40 and Devola's only 18. A drop of rain fell on Romy's cheek, and then another, and far away lightning bolted and thunder sounded, and we looked up and saw the rain moving down the valley toward us in great, wavering sheets, and Romy said we'd best not be caught out in the open. I tied the dishcloth I'd brought along tight over the mouth of the basket so that none of the greens would spill out, and we rose and ran back along the bank to Kaiser's house. All of the front windows were wide open, and so was the door, but there wasn't a light on anywhere, and there weren't any sounds at all. Romy tried the screen door and said, "It's not latched. You reckon it'd be all right if we just went in?" "Wait," I said, and walked back to the edge of the porch and peered out through the darkness. Kaiser's car was in the garage, the back end of it gleaming whitely. "He's here," I said, "but there's something wrong. As stingy as he is, he wouldn't leave all the windows open like this. Wouldn't take a chance on the rain ruining his curtains and floors. Let's just step inside a minute, Romy." Romy went in ahead of me and located the electric switch just inside and pressed it. "Look," he said. And I looked, and there was Kaiser Peace sprawled on the Davenport. One of his boots had soiled the fine green upholstery. There was a stubble of beard on his face and a dried spittle around his mouth. His eyes were wide open but delirium glazed. From his knees to his chin, he had swathed himself in 3 heavy woolen blankets, but still in this odd half-sleep of his teeth chattered. Romy said, "Lord have mercy, look at him. He's sicker than a dog. He don't even know we're here, he's that sick. Wonder how long he's been this way." I said, "Close the windows and the door, Romy, and draw the curtains. It's terribly damp and cold in here. What does he do for heat in this place, or is he too stingy to have any?" Romy said no, that Kaiser had heat and clattered down the basement steps and fired up the furnace there, and in just a few minutes warmth began to seep into the room. There was a bowl of cold, untouched soup on the table beside the Davenport. I carried it to the kitchen and dumped it down the sink. Through all of our activities, Kaiser didn't stir. There was just the sound of his teeth chattering and his ragged breathing. Romy moved a footstool and chair over, and we sat down in front of Kaiser and looked at him and wondered aloud to each other what was to be done. Romy said, "Maybe a snake bit him and he's still got the fangs in him. You think we ought to look, Mary Call?" "No." "What then?" "Hush a minute, I'm thinking." Prissy, like a girl, Romy folded his hands in his lap and closed his eyes. The rain breathed against the sides of the house. I thought about hot chocolate and how fragile life is and how much of everything it takes to sustain it. Kaiser whimpered suddenly and pulled at the blankets. His eyelids drooped and 2 skimpy tears rolled down. He can't even cry generous, I thought. I leaned forward and felt the heat coming from him. His breath and the sight of his stained teeth with dark brown pockets along the gum lines recoiled me. None of us Luthers has ever had a bought toothbrush. We make our own from white birch branches, and we make our own cleaner from wintergreen leaves and table salt, but all of us have strong white teeth and red gums. Even I'm a Dean who is only 5. Romy had opened his eyes and was staring at Kaiser. The edges of his face were very sharp. He moved his feet back and forth on the rung of his chair. "He's real sick, ain't he?" "Isn't he, Romy? Isn't he? Don't say ain't." "Well, isn't he then? He's real sick, isn't he?" "Yes." "He doesn't even know we're here, does he?" "No, I don't think so." "He can't hear what we're saying, can he?" "No." Romy's smile was wide and angelic. He stilled his feet and rested his dirty hands on his knees. In a tone of hushed, near reverence, he said, "Kaiser's whole basement is full of food, Mary Call." "Is it? What kind?" "All kind. There must be near two dozen hams hanging from the rafters down there. And he's got a freezer full of butter and chicken and all kinds of stuff. Those hams were real hickory cured. Boy, they look good. What do you reckon he's going to do with all of them?" "I don't know, Romy. He's breathing kind of funny. He's breathing just like Grandpa Luther did when he was dying. Maybe he's got pneumonia like Grandpa and fixing to die. Are we going to do anything for him?" "In a minute we might. I'm still thinking." "About what?" Kaiser's tongue was out of his mouth. The tip of it searched in vain for moisture. A pulse in his neck fluttered. He looked helpless and somehow strangely sincere. He'll do it, I thought. He's got no choice but to do it. I'll tell him he's got to. I'll pull him out of this just far enough so he'll be able to understand what I'm talking about, and then I'll tell him. Romy was looking at me, not sighing but ready to. He found a patch of dried soil on his knee and rubbed it with his palm. His sigh came. He said, "Well, if you don't want to tell me, I don't care. It's too hot in here now, and I'm tired. If we're going to do anything about him, let's go home. If we aren't going to do anything about him, let's go home." The rain stopped. I said, Romy, we're going to help Kaiser. We aren't going to let him die. If he died, he wouldn't be any good to us, you understand? No, Mary called. We need onions, lots of onions. You remember seeing any down in the basement? No, I wasn't looking for onions. I was looking at the hams. Romy's hunger for things we don't have never leaves him. We went down to the basement and found onions, bushels of them, heaped white and red and yellow in ventilated bins along the wall. I said, we'll need a basket or something so we can get them upstairs. Remembrance surged into Romy's face. He groaned, oh no, not that treatment. But he helped me fill an old galvanized wash tub with onions, and between us we got it up to the kitchen. Romy said we were going to Dr. Kaiser. Where he was, Romy said, were we going to Dr. Kaiser where he was, or were we going to transfer him to the bathroom? And were we going to do it with his underwear on or off, and that Imodine and Devola would be worried about us, and shouldn't he run home and tell them what was going on? I said we'd give Kaiser his treatment in the bathroom, and we'd leave his underwear on, and for Romy to run home and tell Imodine and Devola what was going on and bring them back with him. Roy Luther would sleep the night without him. Roy Luther would sleep the night through without waking. While Romy was gone, I started peeling the onions, slicing them and frying them in 2 deep cast pots. While Romy was gone, I started peeling the onions, slicing them and frying them in 2 deep cast iron pots with the heat under them turned low so they wouldn't burn. They sizzled and steamed, and the house filled with the smell of them and rich, hot peanut oil. I went in once for a look at Kaiser to make sure he was still alive. He thought I was his sister. Sister, I'm a-dying, sister. Oh, I knowed you'd come, I knowed it. Bygones is bygones now. Oh, I knowed I packed a lot of things off onto you that wasn't right, but I'm a-repenting for 'em now. You say it, sister. Bygones is bygones. You say it. Bygones is bygones. To try and quiet him, I said, bygones is bygones. He pushed himself up and clutched my arm. I see them devil eyes a-shining, and I hear them devil voices a-screeching. Make 'em stop, sister. I don't want to go nowheres with them. Oh, Lordy, I'm a-dying and I don't deserve to. I never did nothing wrong to nobody. I said, you never did anything right to anybody, Kaiser, and you do so deserve to die, but I'm not going to let you. You want a drink of water? He let me hold the glass to his mouth, and some of the water went down him, but most of it spilled because his teeth were chattering so. Romy came back with Imodine and Devola. Devola looked at Kaiser and said he looked sick, and looked at the kitchen and said what a mess, and I said never mind that now. Just you and Imodine start peeling and frying. But first, help Romy and me get Kaiser into the bathroom. He moaned when we first tried to move him, and nobody sympathized. It's not our fault you're so fat, said Romy. You ought to try going hungry once in a while. He'd be lighter, Imodine pointed out, if his boots were off. So we tried to remove them, but couldn't. He had stuffed his long underwear, which he wears summer and winter, down into his boots, and his feet were wedged in tight. He smells, complained Devola. We should give him a bath before we do whatever we're fixing to do with him. Romy said, if you was to ask me, this dirty old bird ain't worth saving from nothing. Least of all death. But if we're gonna do it, let's do it. And he grasped Kaiser under one arm, and Devola took him by the other, and I took his right leg, and Imodine took his left one, and we staggered to the bathroom with him and deposited him in the cold tub. He started to shake violently, but not for long. I had Romy bring all the blankets he could find, and we slipped those under Kaiser and tucked them all around him and good and tight, and then Devola brought in the first kettle of fried onions, and Romy and I started the treatment. We opened up Kaiser's underwear to the waist and slathered him thick with the hot onions front and back, and the Divola brought another kettleful, and I steamed a towel under the hot water tap and poured the second batch into it, making Kaiser a collar, and then Dean said, "What about his head?" And I hollered for Divola to bring more onions and made Kaiser a cap from another towel and more onions. The bathroom was small and hot and steamy, and Kaiser, writhing and pitching in his nest of blankets and warm, oily onions, began to pant and sweat. I sat on the side of the tub, and Romy closed the toilet seat and sat on it, and we watched. Kaiser didn't like being all plastered up with onions. Divola brought in another potful, and we dumped that down inside his underwear, and he gagged and sputtered and slid around and tried to climb out of the tub, but Romy and I pushed him back down and wrapped the blankets tighter around him. "I've smelled some stenches," observed Romy, "but I do believe this here one is the worst. Look, Mary Caw, his cap is slipped off. Maybe you'd better tie the towel under his chin. No, wait a minute. I'll go see if I can find some big safety pins. They'll work better than tying. And I'll have Divola bring some fresh onions. These here on his head are all turned cold." Relieved of his cap, Kaiser worked his arm free of the blankets and clawed onions out of his hair and ears and coughed and gasped and wheezed. I leaned over him and said, "Kaiser, it's Mary Call Luther. Do you recognize me?" Under its burden of onions and blankets, Kaiser's chest rose and fell. His tongue came out and licked his lips. His colorless eyes, staring into mine, were filled with bewilderment. "Sister?" he croaked. "Sister? Oh, sister, I'm a-dying. Ain't no use to beg the truth with me now. I'm a-dying." It was still too early to try any reasoning with him. Slippery with onions herself, all up and down her front, Divola came in with a steaming black brew of coltsfoot and turpentine and spicewood all boiled up together, and we got a cupful down him. Divola said Romy was fixing us a little night supper to eat, and was one ham enough to slice and fry. Along about midnight, Kaiser was able to talk some sense to me. Romy's fried ham and Divola's biscuits, slathered thick with real butter and sourwood honey, had sustained us that long. Still in his nest of onions, some of them warmed over, and oily blankets, Kaiser's skin suddenly changed hue. Some of the fever in it ebbed, and it took on a papery look. Curled on the toilet seat, Romy said, "Something's happening to him, Mary Call. Look." Kaiser had come partly awake, was hovering in that queer ambiance between consciousness and unconsciousness, with his exhausted eyes on me, trying to place me, and his drained mouth groping for sound. It came out of his throat in chopped little halts. "Mary Call, is that you?" "Yes, Kaiser." "What? What's trouble?" "You're sick, Kaiser. Awful sick. I'm helping you. Divola and I. We've been here since day before yesterday. We found you. You were dying. You still might be. We'll know by maybe tomorrow morning." "No, don't try to move, Kaiser. What you've got to do now is just lie there quiet as you can and try to recover. Divola and I right here helping you, see?" Weakly, Kaiser's eyes slid around to Romy. "Divola, she looks different," he whispered. "Yeah, well, you'd look different too if you had been here 2 nights and 2 days fighting the pneumonia and fever in you the way we have. We almost gave you up for a goner a couple of times, Kaiser, and that's the truth. You were very sick. You still are. Isn't that right, Divola?" Romy nodded. Against impending tragedy, Kaiser closed his eyes. A pale, translucent piece of exhausted onion slid from beneath his turban and slowly traveled down the bridge of his nose. He didn't brush it away. "Kaiser?" "What?" "You are very sick." Sick. If Divola and I went away and left you now, you'd die. You hear me, Kaiser?" I'd die." "We don't want to go away and leave you." "No, don't leave me." But the thing is, I can't think of any good reason why we should stay. Not one. In a swift little tide, the fever returned to Kaiser's cheeks. Another onion slid down, this time on his eyelid. He tried to blink it off, but it was stuck. His breath started to come hard and fast. I'll pay you. With what, Kaiser? Money. How much? $5, maybe. I don't want $5, Kaiser. Don't want $5? No. Don't leave me. Sick, terrible sick. I want you to give us the house we live in and the land Roy Luther works. Free and clear. I want you to sign a paper that says so. What paper? This paper. Kaiser signed the paper. I waved the ink dry, folded it, and tucked it under the lining of my shoe. What does it mean? Asked Romy. It means we're free, I said. Now we own our house and our own land. There's 20 acres of it, and nobody can even set foot on it unless we want them to, not even Kaiser. We're not farm tenants anymore, Romy. Now nobody can tell us what to do. We're free. Romy stood and took 3 steps and looked down at Kaiser. Kaiser had his eyes closed, was breathing evenly. His towel turban had slipped sideways, allowing pieces of lank hair and strings of wearied onion to escape. He was dirty and greasy and gaunt. He looked terrible, worse than I'd ever seen him. But still, in that time, in that moment, I saw in him something I'd never seen before. It might have been just a feeling, or it might have been real, but I saw it. A curious, raw dignity. And I thought, he's mean, and he's stingy, and he's a bully, and he's gone back on his word to Roy Luther more times than anybody can count, but he won't go back on this. I won't let him. He'll try it, and I'll have to fight him, and maybe I won't be any match for him, but I won't go down the way Roy Luther's gone. I won't let him do to me and the rest who belong to me that what he's done to Roy Luther. Romy was saying, you mean from now on, when I'm out in the fields working and Kaiser comes riding up and hollers for me to do something, I don't have to do it? That's right. That's exactly what I mean. He might go back on what the paper says, Mary called. He might just go back on it. No, I said, he won't. I won't let him. From our night's work, Romy figured we should have a little something extra. I argued that we couldn't take anything, that if we did it would be stealing. He found a piece of paper and a pencil and wrote out an IOU to Kaiser. He didn't put any amount on it, just listed the things we took from the basement. A ham, 4 frozen chickens, 4 pounds of frozen butter, 2 quarts of honey, a pack of red yams. Romy found a gunny sack for the yams and let Imogene drag them home. They were too heavy for her to carry.